Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Back
How
for
we
another
doing?
week.
Another week.
Yep, back for another week.
Oh, God, well in sync. Love it.
Was it ever funny?
No,
I
never
don't
not.
remember. We've been doing that for so long. That was the first just like back for another week, just like a fun, actually like entertaining thing that then we just pushed further, like, just kept doing it and doing it and doing it, much to George's chagrin. Was it ever good? Were we ever good?
No, the answer is no to both
No,
of those questions.
not all those questions.
All right, fantastic.
But for the listener,
the thing is, if you repeat a joke often enough, like at some point, eventually it becomes funny.
Right.
And
Is
that's
it like
why we've
that-
been podcasting for 11 years, Tom, is that if we continue doing it for long enough, eventually it'll be humorous. So
Right, so you're saying that comedy is like tragedy plus time to have become comedy, and then that becoming so long, it's also another tragedy plus more time equals funny.
I think that's the most succinct way of saying it. Yeah, for sure.
Print, perfect. All right, wonderful. We're all on the same page.
Print it. No notes.
print it.
Yeah. Step one is collect underpants.
So what do we do for those Twitch streamers that are logging on right now and listening to our show? Or
And asking us if this is Fortnite.
look, it could be Fortnite, but not today.
It's not right now, but maybe later.
We're an Australian news podcast about newsy type stuff and things. So we're here to try and make you laugh and inform you at the same time, which sometimes one works better than the other. But we'll see how we go.
Gen Zers love edutainment, Adam.
Edutainment.
Massive fan.
They
Your
sure
cat's
do.
sneaking up on you. He's
Yeah,
about
the
to
cats.
They
I'm
also
getting
like
stalked by a
cats.
cat. So
Oh my god, Oates, hello.
The cat's name is Oates.
Oates is adorable, and she came from the hall.
she's now a star.
Tish.
Oates, yeah, Hall and Oates.
Hall and Oates.
The Gen Z, none of the Gen Zers are going to get any of these fucking.
No, we're
But
just
they
stuck
might
with
like the cat.
Yeah, we're just
so-
stuck with our very, very fervent boomer fan base.
They'll all be putting in the chat, oh my OMG, cat is bae, yas, or something. I don't know. I don't know what a kid say nowadays. TikTok, that's the thing.
It is a vibe.
It's
I
a
believe
vibe.
It's a vibe,
bro.
There you go.
Yep. Oates being in the room is a vibe.
You know what else is a vibe this week?
There you go.
Institutionalized sexism. That's a vibe.
There is a vibe going around, clearly, of the past few weeks.
Yeah.
That for always there has been a huge issue with sexism and misogyny and awfulness in Parliament. I mean, we really should have been paying attention when our first female Prime Minister made a really long speech about how fucking sexist and misogynist Parliament was and just the world in general. But nope, it still kept happening. Yes, but this past week was a big deal because about a week ago now on Monday, women of Australia said enough and had a big march across the country, but sort of the big, the major one happened in our capital of Canberra in front of Parliament House.
Yes, not one big long march, several marches.
Yes.
In
Oh,
separate.
yeah. This isn't like what theoretically Hands Across America was meant to be.
Thank you, Adam, for mansplaining that.
That's all
Yes.
right. Just I thought that was a funny joke. Anyway.
Most men often do when they do that, and then no, you're just being a prick. No, I love you, mate. Anyway, there was a protest at the front of Parliament House. It was called the March for Justice, and just about. It was about a lot of things because, not only probably a big part of it was specific action in to do with the current Christian Porter allegations of hey, actually maybe do an inquiry.
Maybe conduct some kind of investigation when the chief law enforcement officer in the country is accused of rape. Maybe something should be done about that.
Maybe something should be done.
There will be something, and we'll get back to that. But keep going.
But actually, I believe also on that point, it made the news that Christian Porter's ex-wife was present at the March for Justice in Perth.
Sick burn.
Making sure to be there. But also, there was a woman was murdered in the UK, I believe last week. The story we've heard too many times of was just walking home from a night out kidnapped, killed, things
and-
like that. So there was a
the-
big push of, hey, violence against women is still a thing. Women should just be allowed to exist in spaces and not be killed.
Yeah, and no
all that
less
sort of
the man who's been accused of a murder is a policeman, if I'm not
It's a
much
policeman
mistaken.
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so-
haven't read too much into him, but yeah.
But just the optics of like women peacefully protesting being killed by a man who was a police officer,
Yeah.
and those protests being violently put down by police officers was
And
just
also like, why don't you go to the police? Yeah, maybe.
yeah, but
What indeed?
in this instance, allegedly, the police might have been the one fucking killing you. So
Yeah.
maybe we're not quite taking this seriously enough as a society. I think that's fair enough to say.
But the March for Justice in Canberra had some big keynote speakers. One of whom a surprise speech came from Brittany Higgins, the woman who's at the centre of the the allegations that kicked off a lot of this snowball effect of the past few weeks that we've been reading about. But it was a big deal because one aspect was that the organisers of the march wanted to speak to Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, and Scott Morrison said, "Sure, come into Parliament House. We'll just have we'll get a meeting room and we'll sit down and have a chat."
Yeah.
And the organisers,
if you guys could kindly come down to this bomb shelter underneath Parliament House,
if you
have a
come
nice,
in,
quiet, soundproof discussion down there that nobody will ever hear.
Yeah, nice, quiet, soundproof, in secret, accountability out the window, just a little discussion. To which the organisers, to their integrity and credit, said, no, this is not happening behind closed doors. You come outside and you fucking listen. And to that, ScoMo said, well, not doing that. I'm suddenly really busy. And so,
there was a fairly fired up group of people outside Parliament House. Like, even Brittany Higgins was having trouble speaking at the start. They had to get Julia Zamiro to come from off stage, tell everyone to shut the fuck up, and then tell the cameras to back off. It was a boisterous environment.
Well, yeah, people are mad,
angry.
and as they should be. But yeah,
and look,
ScoMo, come out and face the music, bro.
ScoMo behaved as you would expect a coward to behave by not addressing the if I'm notoriously am a coward. If I was Prime Minister and I too was the head of an LNP government, there's a lot of imaginary sort of magical thinking that we've got going on.
A lot of hypotheticals going on here.
A lot of big ifs.
Hard hypothetical.
I'll allow it.
Thank you, Judge. I too would be reticent to go out and face the music, as it were, to a bunch of angry people who I'd failed spectacularly.
But it's not like an angry mob a la the Capitol riots in the States coming to hang you. Like the organizers specifically said, you come out and you listen. Like they weren't being like, come out and give a speech and like blah blah blah. I was like, no, you just listen. We want you to hear what we have to say at the bare minimum. And he still couldn't even give him that.
The Liberal, there's a couple of things here. The marketing team would not let him do that. That's a horrible optic.
I was going to say the optics of that. It was a no-win. From an optics standpoint, from the Prime Minister, it was a no-win scenario. So even if he does go out there, it looks bad for him. If he stays inside, it looks bad for him. Yeah. Staying inside is the less scary option. So I'll just.
The second thing is the security detail probably wouldn't let him go out either. So, it's shit. Because ideally, the ethical thing would be that he should do that.
If he wanted to go out. He would have gone.
If he wanted,
he would have gone. Like, guys, I'd love to go out. I can't wait to go out. It's just these big, huge, girthy, muscular men are preventing me from leaving my office. I wish I could.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, there's a mob of angry citizens out there, but I also have, the militarized police here guarding me. Oh no, I feel so unsafe. Oh my God, Oates is back. Those of you listening won't be able to see this, but Oates is now on the desk. Wanting to be the star of the show. Yes. She is oh so cute.
I wonder if Scott Morrison at any point during that interchange really sort of picked up on the ironic feeling of what it must be like to feel unsafe in your place of work. If at any point that crossed his mind, I wonder if this is what all of the women here feel like all the time.
No, he would have. I guarantee he would have just thought, oh, geez. And can they just let up? like, I'm just going to sit here till this problem goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
Still hasn't gone away.
Scott Morrison is very busy waiting for this to blow over. I'm sorry, he can't come out and speak to you guys right now. He is extremely busy doing anything else.
Jenny is not reachable by phone.
I think later. Was it the same day? Question time later that day?
Yeah, question time happened that day.
He responded, and he responded in what I can only term as a well-mannered and measured response. And kept everyone happy, and there's no news story to actually discuss, which of course,
it was great. That's the story for the week. It actually turned out like remarkably well.
Just like the Friends theme song, just like playing over the top of a bunch of happy montages. No, not really. No, he bungled the response.
What?
What? The guy who's famous for a marketing background fucked the optics?
Like the guy who's famously needs an image coach. Turns out probably should have like listened to the image. I don't know, whatever. Got to get a different image coach. I don't know what question he was asked. So it's question time, obviously. People ask questions, politicians.
Also, they like comment on things. He might have been asked, like, someone would have asked the kind of question of being like, so there's a angry group outside protesting like your violence against women and sexist culture, particularly in your government. What do you have to say for yourself? And
do we have the exact quote? We're sort of flying off the cuff here.
As I remember the quote being, he was he took the approach of, rather than actually dealing with any of the subject matter or anything like that, he tried to make the point of how good is it that we live in a country where protest can happen, where and you won't get carted off to a gulag. But the way he phrased it, which I believe Adam has in front, is much worse than that.
Not far from here, such marches even now are being met with bullets, but not here in this country.
How good's Australia, where we don't mow down angry women with automatic machine guns?
How good is Australia?
How good are we?
How good? And my response to that on Instagram was, I don't hold an AK-47, mate, which was met with much fanfare. So I guess the women of Australia should be grateful that their Prime Minister isn't machine gunning them down like common dogs in the street as they do in other countries. So...
It's insane.
You should be fucking pleased about it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, be grateful that we didn't kill you. Is like, of all the responses, of even like going for the response of like how, like, it's great that people who are displeased with the government are allowed to share that view. How good is our country? That's really tone deaf. To add on top of that, how great is it that we allow this to happen because, we could kill you all is insane. Like, it's utter madness.
Other than being just like absurdly tone deaf and like, it just like misses the point entirely of what the march was about. It's not about like, gee, how good is Australia? Like, how's that right to protest on ya? It's like, no, they've got like serious and substantive critiques about you and your government and your party and how they handle these kind of events, and they want change from you. They want you to do something about it. The takeaway should not be, fucking, how good is protest? They'd fucking kill them elsewhere. Not here. But, protest is, like, that's not the lesson. The lesson from today is there's a problem with your government that a really substantial portion of Australia has a problem with, and you should do something about it. That's the lesson to take away from all of this. One would think.
And I haven't heard the full speech, so that's like one sound bite from it. But yeah, I mean, if that's the thrust of what he was saying, it's not particularly conducive to
even as a throwaway line, though. Like for someone, as you say, for the Scotty from marketing persona that he has, he does seem to have continual fucking foot and mouth disease. Honestly, I really don't know.
What's he done so far? So he's had the bushfire Hawaii thing.
Yep.
Yeah, where he said, "I don't hold a hose, mate."
And then following that, all like the forcing a handshake kind of crap, with people in there. Like, women should be grateful I haven't killed them.
The trophy for the boat stopping thing.
That he's got the "I stopped these" trophy on his desk. It's just wild. I want to know with the these protests are normally met with bullets overseas. Quote, because he had He had notes in front of him. Was that the speech that he thought about?
I mean, it looked like he was reading it from the thing.
Still decided to say it, or did he just have a note down there being like, "How, like, you know, the right to protest in Australia, thumbs up, whatever," and just riffed it? Because if that was written down and planned, and he still fucking said it, this guy's insane.
Yeah,
there's a possibility he may have had notes somewhere there about the Burma, Myanmar, which is turning into a bit of a massacre at the moment, the protests over there. But because Australia, I think, has recently stopped military ties or some other thing anyway. But yeah, it's more likely, I think, that some aid's gone, here's some talking points.
Yeah, but like, I don't know.
Fire that guy. It's like, here's some talking points. How good is not killing women?
It just seems like such a basic entry level, like, you know, like when I do a demonstration with a client, it seems like I have more notes together than when Scotty from marketing addresses the Australian Parliament. Like I spend a good 5-10 minutes putting my notes together before I speak to someone. Like the least you can do when addressing the Australian public on such an important issue is find the right fucking words to put together. Like surely this would be a priority, you would think. Like for a government that is so focused on style over substance, you'd think they'd have some style, but it seems as though they have neither style nor substance.
So after that, I'm assuming this was afterwards, that happened. Question time was going on for a bit. And the next thing to happen was Anthony Albanese had a chance to speak.
Yes, but ScoMo tried to not have it happen.
Yes.
Was sort of how it started, because I guess that the question time, I'm not fully across the procedures, but Scott Morrison essentially called an end to question time. Or at least to his presence in it, that he was like, yep, all right, further questions can be, sent to X, Y, and Z, and to which Albanese stood up to say, well, clearly you're just saying that so you can leave and we won't get a chance to say what we have to say. We have a clip.
From Twitter. Yes.
Oh, from bloody Twitter.
Yeah, it's from ABC News.
I also find it horrible optics as well. And I'm assuming this happens all the time in Parliament. But like when someone's trying to speak and a bunch of people on the opposition side just get up and leave, it happens all the time.
It's pretty galling.
It's like, come on, guys. Like, you're all paid to be here.
Can you guys see the video? Is it all good?
Yes.
Yep. Ready to go when you are. So this is the beginning of that clip towards the end of question time. There might be some visual cues, which we'll just jump in for those of you listening at home. All right.
Just make sure you got the audio boosted to max for that.
Yeah, sure is.
Cool.
Sides, Prime Minister has the call.
Mr. Speaker, as I've consistently advised the House, that date which I referred to, I misspoke and said February 12. February 15 is the date, Mr. Speaker. I simply misspoke.
The Leader of the Opposition.
I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent the Leader of the Opposition from moving the following motion immediately. That the House calls on the Prime Minister to immediately 1. Commission an independent inquiry into the sexual assault allegations against the Attorney-General. 2. Provide a full explanation of his government's response to the reported sexual assault of Brittany Higgins in the Defence Minister's office in March 2019. 3. Act on the Australian Human Rights Commission's Respect at Work report. And 4. Improve support programs that prevent gendered violence. No wonder Brittany Higgins feels let down. No wonder Brittany Higgins gave such an extraordinary statement outside, where she said, I had my suspicions confirmed when the media exposed a long list of people who knew what had happened to me. A list that seemed to grow by the day as truths about internal reviews, Senate committee submissions, office cleans and witness accounts were all unearthed. Brittany Higgins also said,
The Leader of the Opposition will resume his seat. The Leader of the House.
Mr. Speaker, I think Leader of the Opposition's had a fair go. I move that he be no longer heard.
The Leader of the House.
And that is where we will leave the House of Representatives.
And so how that ended was there's a vote on that, and the Liberal Party, along with people like Bob Catter and sort of the independents that more swing their way, had a majority vote that Albanese had to stop speaking. and just sit back down. They can just tell him to shut up, and then he has to. It was just incredible. Like
it shows the odd rules they've got in Parliament, right?
Well, I suppose it's all to a democratic vote, right? But
there are standing orders that prevent Albanese from speaking. Albanese has to move that those standing orders be revoked, and then goes to try and put a motion to the House, and then the government then comes back and says, no, you're no longer allowed to speak. Let's vote on that.
Yeah, it's like, what? You mean the government that you mean the system that loves to do a review into the inquiry of the investigation has a lot of different little parts that have to be filed for anything to happen?
I just love the idea that it's that in the midst of relaying Brittany Higgins's words about being a survivor of sexual assault and her being gagged and silenced by the party that's sitting across from him, in the midst of that, to literally say, no, you can't read those words out. You will be silenced. You will be silenced in the middle of that is like some kind of Machiavellian, like this is like a cartoon Snidely Whiplash level fucking villain. Like
it's cartoonishly evil. Like Peter Dutton is beyond just seems like a shit bloke. He seems like it's comically villainous.
Yeah,
everything he does.
We should do a recut of this and just have the Imperial March going behind it, just bam, 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 as soon as Dutton walks up.
It's funny because he has the most powerful security portfolio in Australia's history. So
that should keep all of you listening up at night. All of you in Australia.
The leader of the opposition has had a fair go. I move that you shut the fuck up. And it pinches his throat or something with the force.
The look on Albo's face when because he looked down at some notes and then came back up and Dutton's there and he's like, what? Because he knows probably what he's about to do. He's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
But I like to imagine that it's fucking something like Harry Potter. Just he's standing there reaching for his notes and he can see his breath starts to appear in front of his mouth as the room gets cold and the flowers that are sort of decorative in the center of the table start to wilt as icicles form on the sides of the tables as he looks up and Dutton's standing across from him with his soulless dead eyes.
Shire! Albanese!
Because he's actually the devil. He's actually soulless. I don't know how to describe it.
Careful, Tom. In describing a politician from the opposing side as evil, you might be caught up in a get-up campaign at some point.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, no, good point. Anyway, it was just... It was incredible to see. That's just some wild question time behavior.
And I think that was, one of the things that Albanese was trying to speak about was the fact that Higgins' speech was pretty moving because it's the first time she's spoken publicly. And the main thrust of it was that you could sense that she had this loyalty to this party, right? Like she had sort of was ready to go king and country, all the way for the Liberal Party. And then when this happened, they just said it just all became about optics and the party and not about her at all. Yeah. And you could see that she, the emotion with which she was speaking was, it was profound. Yeah. And there were other speeches like Grace Tame, I think, had a speech in Tasmania. That was pretty
Australian of the Year.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. So it was a big day, and on that same day, I think it was the same day. I don't know what day it was. Shortly thereafter, at least anyway. Government MP Nicolle Flint had a chance to speak in Parliament, and she relayed her experiences of the 2019 election campaign and used that as, I guess, a bit of a counterpoint, for putting it subtly, to the opposition's calls previously. So essentially, her main thrust was that it's a bit rich for Mr. Albanese to stand up and call for motions and whatever else. If am I cut out or something? Nope.
No, sorry. Just I was trying to tee up the clip and then it started playing, and so like weird audio was going on.
You're right. Anyway, but she basically was trying to flip the switch a little bit, I guess, in Parliament to say, well, the opposition isn't so great at this either. But it's a layered thing, there are layers
Nicolle
to it.
Flint says, these partisan attacks are completely unfair. No, Adam, all fair play to her. These partisan attacks are completely unfair, and that's why the Labor Party fucking sucks, because they're a bunch of cunts.
Let's play the clip, and you can hear what she says.
All right.
The Party today is they may not have held the spray can to vandalise my office with sexist slurs. They may not have held the camera pointed at me by the stalker or called me evil in GetUp's phone calls, but they did create the environment in which hate could flourish. So I say to the Leader of the Opposition, what will you do about this? I say to the Leader of the Opposition, get your own house in order. And I say to the Leader of the Opposition, this can't be about politics anymore. We all bear the responsibility for change.
Yeah, we all bear the responsibility for change. That's why your side is really at fault and my side isn't that bad, because we're all the same. We're all equally as bad as each other. What a stirring piece of rhetoric that was.
Yeah, because I agree with Adam there. There's layers to this, because there's a point in there that's worth definitely making, right? In that, because Labor have, of course, said like, well, no, it wasn't our campaign to vandalize your office and all these sorts of things, but to not be like, hey, don't just throw like words like skank and stuff onto the officers of the opposition. Like, that's not on.
But in all fairness, her being targeted by some Looney Tune, by some guy, right? Or, and yes, I think it's absolutely abhorrent that anyone should face that kind of level of threat just simply for running for office. But number one, GetUp is an arm's length organisation with Labor. There's been 3 different investigations from the Australian Electoral Commission as to whether they are an arm's length organisation or not. And they've all said that, yes, GetUp is in fact an arm's length organisation. Now, they are progressive, so obviously in most situations they're going to preference the Labor candidate over the Liberal candidate, and she was in a marginal Liberal seat, and they went after her. But and there should never be any excuse for violence. We don't even know that the guy that perpetrated this attack on her campaign officers was even necessarily a member of GetUp. So we also
don't know whether or not the campaign officers are linked to the stalker situation.
But all we've got is evidence of like a person behaving badly, and like we all agree,
or a few people, depending on
Labor.
We don't know.
Had nothing to do with that. They didn't perpetrate it. They didn't applaud it. They didn't say it was good. When asked for comment, they've said that it's bad. Like, it is completely ridiculous to say that one crazy person represents all of the left side of politics.
We don't know it's one crazy person. There's footage of people following around with signs and harassing her and stuff, George. Right. Like, it's not just as simple as one Looney Tune.
I know. Okay, but I'm saying in the instance of the person who spray painted her officers. In terms of the coordinated campaign from GetUp, like, I'm sorry, that's kind of politics. Like, that's what's going to happen in marginal seats. People following you around, pushing their policy agenda, trying to get their candidates seated or unseated. Like, that's what politics is. And if you don't like what that is, then you shouldn't be in politics. Like, people don't play nice. I kind of wish that progressive agendas were a little bit more aggressive on these sorts of fronts, because it would actually hold these people to account. And she won the seat. So it's not like she was badgered and she was pushed out of politics. Like she actually won the seat that she was in. Is it regrettable that those things happened? Yes, but it was not a coordinated campaign by Labor. That has been denied. It's been even denied by GetUp on that on that Radio National interview with Fran Kelly as well, where the Ruby Rose O'Halloran Get Up's campaign director, talked about the different kinds of measures that they have in place for complaints, codes of conduct, things that you are allowed to do or not allowed to do. Anytime that someone's being caught in violation of those, they are then banned from Get Up. You can't be responsible for everything that everyone who's sympathetic to your point of view thinks. They don't encourage it and they don't want it, these organizations.
The point I was getting at was whether or not like Labor themselves had commented on just that sort of stuff happening, not that they were apologizing or taking accountability for perpetrating it. So yeah, if they have said and admonished it and all that sort of stuff, then yeah, that, because like as Nicolle Flint said, of like not you actually committing the acts, but allowing an environment where it can flourish, sort of thing. But if they've taken a stance and like outright said like no, like this isn't what we want, like you can't just be throwing sexist slurs at our opponents.
No, Get Up.
That's another thing, but I hadn't seen a lot of that sort of stuff.
Get Up, the organization, has actively rejected that and has actively like talked about these systems that they have in place to discourage this behavior and ban the people that are found to be doing it. So
we've lost Adam.
His internet's cut out. I'm sure he'll be rejoining us shortly.
He'll be back. They come crawling back.
I don't think it's fair to say like, oh, like just because this person received was on the receiving end of, hateful rhetoric or harassment, or that these things are then automatically fall at the feet of the Labor Party. I just don't buy that, especially when she has been part of a government that has been like just the LNP calling the other side sexist is just not credible. It's not a credible thing to say when both of the front benches that are women, like, like the two female members that they have in the front bench remaining are having a go at Labor's side, which is, comprised of whatever it is, 40% women, has active sort of policy platforms addressing, paid parental leave and childcare. And like, I just don't I don't buy the argument coming from the conservative side of politics. And the reason that this argument has been allowed to proliferate in the last week is to do this classic thing that conservatives do whenever they're pinned down on an issue and they know they're on the wrong side of it. They go, what about the other side? The other side's just as fucking bad.
So are you saying that she's not genuine though in what she's, so from your perspective, you think she's just like false crying basically? Like, or are you saying that what are you trying to
having watched her speech, I didn't feel as though the emotions were genuine. It seemed like a put on to me, if I'm completely honest.
She's quitting politics at the next election.
Okay, but she's not quitting politics because she was harassed. That's the claimed rationale. But I think she's quitting politics because she's not going to win the next election, Adam. She had a massive swing against her. She was like 2% up in the last election. She's not
it wasn't a very massive swing. They redivided the seats.
That as well. Yeah. So in addition to them redividing the seats, which already shrunk her margin from 3.8 to 2.5% or something like that, she also had a swing against her. And the reason that Get Up and Labor campaigned so voraciously for the seat is because it is now very winnable for them at this current point in time. So it's another classic example of the LNP installing women in seats that are only pretty disposable. Like, I don't feel sorry for the side. Like, have you met Tony Abbott, who was up until quite recently the leader of your party, who said sex is bullshit, like ditch the witch, and, LNP fundraisers where they had chicken breast, whatever it was, thick thighs, chicken thighs, referring to Julia Gillard. I'm sorry, you're just on the wrong side to be making this argument.
Can you not agree, though, that if Scott Morrison, like the concept being here that leadership and direction flows downhill. So if Anthony Albanese is the head of the opposition and should be in some way in control of their campaign strategy, or actually at that point it would have been Bill Shorten. Should Bill Shorten, in that instance, not be somewhat responsible for the way people affiliated, whether directly or indirectly, conduct themselves in pursuing those campaign objectives.
I guess that's a broader question there. How responsible are you for your followers' behavior? And in the case of like someone like Donald Trump, who says like punch him, punch his lights out, like encouraging violence, I'd say, yeah, he is responsible, at least to some degree, for the things that people do in your name. If Albo was the prime minister, I think it might be a fairer criticism for her to level to say, hey, you know, you talk about sexism, you guys have done this to me, you guys are in charge now. Maybe you should, you know, take a look at your own backyard before you go criticizing other people. That might be a fairer complaint. But Albo is nobody. He's the shadow leader. He's not in government. Your side, Nicolle, is the one in government. So, I just don't understand what... It's so transparently, obviously being used. Scott Morrison has wheeled her out to
I don't know if it's as simple as that,
because
George.
these allegations are from the previous election. You think it's just a fucking coincidence that we're talking about it in the media now, or do you really not think that it is an attack leveled from the conservative side of politics to say, hey, the other side is just as bad as we are, when on every single important metric, representation of women, the culture of sexual violence, credible accusations of sexual assault, on every metric that matters, the Liberal Party is worse. And they know this, and that's why they're leveling the attack at the other side. I can't imagine that you really believe that's not the case.
So you reckon she's been whipped up to make that statement?
I reckon she probably has genuinely held beliefs. I think the quavering voice, if you look at the whole speech, she's staring down the camera and trying to have a Julia Gillard, I will not be lectured by this man moment, but it feels very fucking forced. I think she probably has genuinely held an axe to grind against Labor for how she was campaigned against. And I think there should be no instances of that kind of spray painting, political violence, all that sort of stuff. But the reason she has been foregrounded right now is, yes, because it's politically useful. And if you don't think that, then I don't know what to tell you.
But would you not argue that given the recontextualization that's happened over the last, 2 months now or something with this whole saga in Parliament House, that statements like that, it's created an environment where she can speak about that, perhaps. Whereas before it would have just been like, oh, well, yeah, it's just part of politics, yada, yada, yada.
I don't know. Yes, the environment has changed, and I guess that, you know, it's more relevant to talk about it now. And I'd never heard of Nicolle Flint right before any of this happened, so I was unaware of the allegations. And so were most of the members of Parliament, by the way. When Tanya Plibersek and Penny Wong were reached for comment, they were like, yeah, I found out about this last week when the media found out about it, so I don't know. The difference is, Adam, is that the left side of politics, Tanya Plibersek, reached out and phoned her and said she was saddened to hear that she was resigning at the end of her term, and that, you know, that she would like to see more women in Parliament, not less. That is something you just wouldn't see from the other side. Like, I don't understand how the discussion has become about Labor and the way Labor handles things when A, Labor is not in government, and B, Labor is demonstrably better on all of these issues. It's just fucking spin dog shit. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it coming from Nicolle. I don't buy it coming from the PM. It's an obvious fucking black hole distraction, what-about-ism grenade that they've thrown into the discourse this week to distract attention.
What do you think of the situation?
Oh, well, yeah, on that point, like, I guess, yeah, the takeaway that I'd get from it is the what-about-ism of it, because in so many instances like these, of just the pure, like, that's the word I'm looking for, like, the infallibility of people, right? In that, like, yeah, I feel like her, like that situation and those claims and that behavior, and then criticizing like that party's response to it, whether they feel responsible for it or not, the commentary on it is a valid thing to bring up. But it's at the same time that it's like, it doesn't invalidate what Albo said.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's that thing of that, like, yes, good point. That's also bad.
Yeah, all of these things are bad.
Make the other thing okay. Like,
yes.
Yeah, sure, we can talk about that. Great. And let's clean up Labor's house too, because also, like, I'm not fully across this, but some allegations and things have been coming out from like Labor staffers and things like that of other like instances of like sexual harassment and stuff.
And if those are true, by the way, those are all bad.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and they do need to be talking about that. But the very fact that Labor did it too doesn't mean it's okay, like, to be like, oh, well, all right, well, they did it too, so we shouldn't do anything then.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly the point. The point of all of this, muddying the discourse, is to make sure that nothing gets done about it because both sides are as bad as the other. You feeling disengaged, you, the listener, feeling disengaged as a result of this process is the point. Is the point of Nicolle Flint getting up and making this speech and tarring the other side and making both sides look as bad as each other when they're not quite as bad as each other, is the point. They want you to feel disengaged, so you think they're both the same, and then you have an even chance of voting for either of them at the next election. They're both as bad as each other, so what's the fucking point? They want you to be disengaged.
Yeah, the discussion here has not been liberals are sexist pieces of shit and Labour are gods. Like, that's not the discussion we're having here. The discussion here is that the Liberal Party's full of sexist assholes, and they're like, oh, hey, like, the Labour Party's full of sexist assholes. Like, okay, cool. So there's more sexist assholes to deal with. Like, we don't not deal with the other ones because the other side has them.
It is too serious of an issue for this to descend into what-about-ism, because if we do that, nothing gets done. So,
do you think she's cognizant of that fact that she's actually doing more harm to the what she's asking for, which to be above, because she's specifically saying this should be above politics.
Yeah, but she's doing it as a partisan attack by shit-canning the leader of the opposition. So, like, I don't buy it. It's not a credible attack, especially when, if we were to assess which of the sides were the worst side when it comes to this specific issue, she would be on the worst side. So, I don't buy it. Saying that he's crawled into the gutter, that was her quote, by leveling these attacks against her and her party, or against her party, strains credibility, because Tony Abbott was an absolute fucking gutter snipe.
He was the Minister for Women. What are you talking about, Jorge?
Yeah, Minister for Women, Tony Abbott, that said ditch the witch, and a bunch of other sexist horseshit, who was an absolute fucking a virulent, a sexist attack dog against Julia Gillard for years and years, whom she was totally happy with, I guess, because she joined his fucking party after the fact. Like,
Nicolle, you're talking about here, not Julia Gillard. Nicolle. I was gonna say, Julia Gillard joined the Liberal Party. Stop the show.
It's not credible. If it came from Jackie Lambie, or if it came from, you know what I mean, some other non-partisan affiliated woman,
like an independent,
I would find this line of reasoning much more acceptable. But the fact that it comes in the form of a partisan attack, calling for non-partisanism, I'm sorry, it's just another shallow attempt to leverage this issue, like every other issue, to have a go at the other party.
Yeah, but Adam, to your point, I was going to say, Adam, to your point, like, whether it's cognizant of, like, whether this was a perfectly schemed plan to do the thing, I don't think so. I think there's like there's a genuine intent from there, but
it's not. It doesn't look good. It is a partisan attack, but I feel like where that's coming from her perspective, that's genuine, and I think given the context with which we are discussing things this week, that should be listened to. And I'm sure, as you said, next election campaign, I think perhaps Labor will probably be more cognizant of that, and perhaps Liberals will be too, hopefully. I mean, I don't know.
And Adam, as you said at the start of this, there's layers to this. There's a lot of layers to what happened.
I just like, to the extent that political violence is leveled against any candidate, I find that abhorrent. Like, I know Tom had a good laugh when Fraser Anning got hit by an egg, and I was kind of like, this is actually not on. Like, we had a big discussion in the podcast about that. Like, and maybe you want to clarify those comments a little bit, Tom. I might be being uncharitable there in my assessment of them. But, like, you didn't seem as fazed by it as I was. I was quite bothered by that. And when I lived in Malvern, I lived near Kelly O'Dwyer's seat prior to her retirement. I remember seeing similar things. Similar things spray painted on her office.
Yeah. I remember seeing by them, visiting you once. Yeah.
And it wasn't in the news media. I didn't see a big deal made out of it. So clearly there is something in our society there is a misogynistic strain against female public figures and politicians and all that sort of stuff in our society. That is inarguable, and it's wrong, and it should absolutely stop, and we should take steps to stop it and make sure it doesn't happen. To the extent that that's affiliated with one side or the other, that kind of misogyny just is more affiliated with the conservative side of politics. It just is. It just is, because if you're looking at the side that's, from a policy perspective, combating against women's rights to choose, paid parental leave, access to childcare, access to healthcare, access to economic opportunities so they can leverage themselves out of, the situation that they're in and, being forced into childcare for themselves. Like, the party that cares more about those things is just the Labour Party. Like,
and the weird thing is that a large part of their demographic would be middle-class women. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's going to be...
the very same people that were in this women's march that are unimpressed with her government. Like,
that's the kind of... not target market. What's the word when you're looking for voters? Constituency that they would appeal to. But
and the fact is, by continuing your inaction on issues of sexism and sexual violence, like under the old way of operating politics, if people's constituencies aren't represented, then they don't vote for you anymore, right? That's how things used to work. I don't know that that's going to happen here. I think people are sort of firmly dug in on their ideological lines based on other factors. But you would think
what could you possibly mean, George?
If you were this shit at being a government for women, you would not be the government anymore at the next election. We'll see if that pans out. But
now, probably further, what will probably help exaggerate the story a little bit will be, or extend the life cycle of the story, of this news story, will be the fact that Christian Porter this week decided to, I don't know, take the fight to the left or something. I don't know what he was thinking, but he's decided to sue the ABC for a story, and one particular journalist at the ABC, for a story about his conduct. Now, in this story, he wasn't named.
Yeah, I believe it was the story about the allegations.
Yes.
But it was in the period before that they could say that the allegations were against him.
So he wasn't named in the story. They just reckon that there are enough clues that made them think that it would be Christian Porter.
Yeah. This will be, it's a bit of an own goal in that sense.
But it was, though? Like, can you...
Yeah.
Like, if the allegations were against him. So, like...
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting how this plays out. I think
so it's a defamation lawsuit, right? Yes. So he's saying that the claims that the article and that everyone else has been saying are untrue, and that you can infer that he was the named person in the, or unnamed person in the article.
Yeah.
So he's got to prove two things, basically. One is that you can infer that it was him. And secondly, that obviously the thing that it was defamatory and that the things didn't happen, I guess, or depending on how it works exactly in court, it might be up to the other side to prove or disprove. It's
going to be interesting. Like, I mean, because I'm not a lawyer. I've just had some minimal, like, sort of training in, like, the media law and defamation thereupon. And, you know, the big thing that people always talk about with, like, a defamation case is that, like, a really good bulletproof defense from the journalist's perspective in writing something that could be considered defamatory is if it's true. Like, as if the thing you're writing is true, it's not bulletproof, but it's pretty good. If it's true, then the whole, like, does it lower the reputation of someone in the eyes of a reasonable adult? The reputation should have been already at that point because the statement was true. But whether or not in this instance is, if you're saying that, because the article was about that allegations had been put against a minister, which is true. The allegations were put against Christian Porter. That is true. Yeah. The article wasn't about whether or not he raped that woman. It was about that allegations had been made against a minister, and that minister was him. But they didn't name him, all that sort of stuff. But that's true. That turned out to be true by his own admission. So it's whether or not, like, well, but yeah, if it's defamation to be like, well, it lowers my reputation that people know that I'm the alleged. It's like, well, yeah, but then you just came out and said it. So, like, you didn't come out and say, I did it. You came out and said the allegations are against me, and then you denied them. But it's still the truth that you have been alleged of this.
It's such a weird circumstance because he's the Attorney General. He's been a lawyer for years. So he must be thinking, I've got to win here and I'm going to do it strategically. Because what this
he clearly knows something that we don't. But
what this may end up being, it may not necessarily, but it may end up being a de facto like rape trial.
He's essentially bringing his own inquiry.
Right. He's bringing his own inquiry.
The inquiry he said he didn't want.
Yeah. Right.
The thing is, though, is that obviously the burden of proof in a court setting, like, you're not going to be able to prove one way or the other, right, whether the assault happened in the context of this kind of legal proceeding. But at the end of it, he's going to turn around and say, well, I'm cleared. I was vindicated, right? It's a classic Trump thing of like, see, not responsible, right? So regardless
it'll be like the Brett Kavanaugh situation, right? That wasn't a trial of whether or not he assaulted anyone, but it very much became about that.
I think it is a clearly an attempt to get in front of the narrative. If you were falsely accused of something, what would you do? You'd sue for defamation, wouldn't you? So you're getting on the front foot, you're owning the narrative, you're controlling how the story progresses, and as the stories come out over the trial, over whatever it is those weeks, you can present whatever evidence you like, which will then be reported on and disseminated out to the public as to trying to prove your innocence and clear your name, right? It's from his, like, from a strategic position, I think it's an unlosable kind of gambit for him because he's not gonna, like, he may or may not win the defamation lawsuit, but either way he wins the trial by media, which is the whole point, right?
Which is interesting though, is that because more evidence could come to light which may harm him during the process, or alternatively as well, because it's not beyond reasonable doubt, it's on the balance of probabilities with these kind of civil suits. I mean, there is a possibility it could backfire in his face.
Well, the worst scenario is he loses the lawsuit. Okay. But I still got to have my trial by media that I got to dictate.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting though in that sense because you're right, Adam, of like the other things that could come about as a result. I think the ex-boyfriend of the accuser came out to say, no, she told me about it closer to the time, and also I had words with him about it, and I am more than willing to testify at whatever I'm needed to. So he's inviting that kind of testimony,
scrutiny, and
and certainly if you get other people coming forward with allegations against Christian Porter, like oftentimes we've seen in these scenarios when someone comes forward with a story of sexual assault against a famous man, there are other people that come forward as well and corroborate those stories and have like stories and have their own stories and allegations that come out as a result. At the moment, we're just talking about one woman, but if it comes as a result of this trial and the publicity that this trial, civil proceeding generates, if additional people come forward, well, I mean, that's definitely not going to work to his benefit, right? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. What's another interesting aspect to this is that the defense for the ABC is the former Solicitor General. So it's like a fucking Clash of the Titans anyway.
Big swinging QCs.
Yes. Much swinging, many QCs. I had another point, but I've forgotten it. But anyway, I guess the point will be that this will be playing out for many months yet. And probably in some ways it's a good thing, I think, for the women's rights movement because it keeps the issue in focus a little bit more rather than it just sort of dying out in one news cycle. But also it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the long run. Now we've been going for 53 minutes.
Yeah.
Is it worth discussing any of our other stories?
We can tick off JobKeeper. I mean, it's not a massive story. It's just that, hey, so about a year ago, the government introduced this JobKeeper scheme, kicking and screaming, at the behest of Sally McManus, a union boss from the ACTU, I believe. And they introduced this scheme to basically pay people a sort of subsidized, sort of preset amount, for industries that were affected by the coronavirus and lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, in order to get people through those times, through to the other side of whatever that might look like. So There's a policy they didn't want to adopt. They had to be pushed into it kicking and screaming. Anyway, they have adopted it, and ever since, they've been patting themselves on the back weekly for a good adoption of a scheme well done that we totally wanted and has been awesome. Very popular scheme. Obviously, it kept a bunch of people from going out of business, a bunch of people from going broke over the coronavirus pandemic. And the scheme has, over recent months, has been sort of scaled and tapered down and is due to end at the end of this month. So who knows exactly what that's going to look like when, you were saying before the show, Adam, like, the jobless rate has gone down to pre-pandemic levels. I'm like, just wait till next week, buddy. We'll see what it looks like on the 1st of April when people aren't getting paid by the government to have employees.
The job that's the keeper of the jobs, or the thing that is keeping people in jobs, will no longer be doing that. So
yes,
better hope that job maker thing works.
Now, we did say, when this policy came out initially, we did have concerns like, well, you're handing money directly to businesses, like...
Not directly to the employee.
How do we know?
I think I legitimately said at the time, wait 6 to 12 months for all of the stories of rort and graft that have happened with these big spending programs. And on cue, here are the stories about rort and graft.
So it turns out, and these aren't little companies, these aren't like mum and dad small businesses, 1/5 of JobKeeper payments paid to major listed companies being ASX companies.
Yeah, public share trade companies that you can buy and sell shares of. So
these are big companies.
The biggest of the big companies.
Turns out 1/5 of them grew their profits during the pandemic.
Cool. Super cool.
So they analysed 66 of the ASX's top 300 companies. They claimed together 1.38 billion in JobKeeper payments.
Jesus.
6 months to the end of December, so they did pretty well. And of those, what did I say? 66. 58 reported positive profit figures during the period, and about half of those, 34 companies, told investors their underlying earnings had improved compared to pre-pandemic levels.
Yep.
These companies remained eligible for a total of 284 million handed out through the JobKeeper program.
So essentially what they're saying is those companies not only made more money than they did before, but they also got free labor as paid for by the government.
Free labor or free money, whatever way you want to look at it. But
well, the company's not getting the money. The money goes through to the employee, but the employee is presumably continuing to do work, so they're getting free labor, right? This labor that they're not having to pay for.
Yeah, well, it's the thing of it. They're supposed to. I thought that was the thing with sort of JobKeeper was that, you get X amount per employee direct to the company, which you are supposed to use to maintain people's wages. But if you're already making huge amounts of profit, then you normally would already, you're covering your workers' expenses. So that extra money is just sweet, sweet cash, baby.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In terms of how you write that down, whether or not the income went straight to the employee or whether or not just went to the slush fund, who knows?
It was interesting, though, because I work for a business that is not an ASX-listed business, and they were like, talking to the guys in finance, there was a lot of talk about like, okay, well, we no longer, at the end of the first period where they were tapering off, we no longer qualify for this assistance because we've sort of bounced back and we're, sort of making money again. So we're not, whatever it was, 30% below pre-pandemic levels. So it's like, okay, as of this month, we no longer qualify for JobKeeper. So like the end. Now, why that happened for a smaller business and not an ASX listed business, who may or may not be donors to the Liberal Party who's currently in government. I don't know why that might be. I don't know. Who knows exactly why some businesses were preferenced over others? Who knows? There's no way of knowing that it was a Liberal LNP donor relief plan. There's no way of knowing that for sure. But
indeed not. So yeah, but yeah, as you said, JobKeeper will end later this week or early next week, and then
March 28th, I believe, is the last day.
Everyone,
which is Sunday next week,
and we'll see what happens then.
Yeah, but, I guess that means if JobKeeper's ending, it means the pandemic's over. Things are back to normal, right?
Well, there was a protest in the city with thousands of people who attended, and if you were not watching, if you'd switched off for a year or maybe 3 months or something, you'd think that we're in the middle of lockdown again because apparently the vaccine's bad. our freedoms. The state of emergency Victoria is still inhibiting your freedoms. Life sucks, and it's all big pharma. So, for some reason,
it's always big pharma.
There are literally hundreds. There would have been probably about 1,000 people at this march in the city today or yesterday, whatever it was. So there's still a large part of society that are like
not
quite on the same page as everyone else. All that, but yeah.
I mean, we're all thinking it.
Yeah. Even Oates, wherever she's gone.
Sorry, what was the relevance of the protest? So it was like an anti-vaxxery type protest in the city, you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah. Just an anti-doing anything about the virus that has stopped us doing stuff.
Yeah, so the point being is,
no, we like the virus. Don't eliminate it. No vaccines, no lockdowns. Let it run rampant.
Yeah, there's a
24, baby.
Not an insubstantial contingent of people here in Australia and obviously around the world as well who just want to do the opposite of whatever's good and helpful. They're just like, hey, getting the vaccine sounds good. Fuck the vaccine. Or they don't want us to get the vaccine. Where's that vaccine? Give me the vaccine. I want it. I just want to do the opposite of what's good.
Wonder how many people are going to be getting the flu vaccine this year and being like, it's none of that COVID vaccine shit, right? Hit me up.
I'm more back to the sort of JobKeeper thing. I am sort of concerned about how I don't understand what the rationale was while to not extend JobKeeper, at least in specific affected industries like tourism and accommodation and things like that, hospitality, like areas where, business is still down. I don't know why. Given that it was about the amount of percentage of turnover that you were less than you were before, why they couldn't have just continued it, because by its nature, it only gives money to businesses that have been, or should. That was the plan. That was the idea. I don't know if this article kind of disputes that by saying it's giving money to profitable businesses still somehow. But surely the idea is it was meant to be scalable. As your revenue comes back up, then your government support tapers off. So
yeah.
I don't know why they're not giving additional support to these industries. They're just letting them burn. I think you're going to see a massive increase in the jobless numbers, homelessness numbers, as moratoriums for leases start dropping off and finishing. You're going to have people being evicted, people that haven't been able to get money in throughout this whole time and now going to be able to be kicked out of their apartments, of their houses. I think this drop-off is going to cause massive reverberations in the economy that we have not yet anticipated. And a month from now, I'll be like, why didn't they just continue the support? It was kind of going fine. So that's my bit on that. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, but they're responsible managers for the economy and
responsible stewards of the economy, Adam, and let no man tell you otherwise.
I feel responsive. I don't know. It's probably a good way to finish it because I'm running out of brain power after my overnight laser tag event. So
because you're a cool guy,
so cool.
After your LARPing event with all the fun military boys out in the bush.
I wasn't LARPing. It was just live action
role playing, otherwise known as LARPing. On that note, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and motherfucking TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
And you can follow us all down to the bush. Where we will be hanging out with Wolfpack. Thanks for listening. Love your faces, guys. We'll see you next week.
I mean, you'll be hanging out with the Wolfpack. I mean, you can't hang out with a singular Wolfpack. I mean, Wolfpack is a multiple of
but it's
a pack of wolves.
Yeah, but it's one guy, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, it is.